Don't shop at Morrisons until you watch this. What if I told you that dozens of Morrisons stores across the UK failed food hygiene inspections, with some scoring as low as 0? 0. That's the worst possible rating, meaning they need urgent action to fix serious food safety problems. I'm talking about stores where hand-washing facilities aren't adequate, where pest control is questionable, and where the food you're buying might not be as safe as you think. If you're over 60, this matters even more because your immune system isn't what it used to be. A food safety issue that might make a younger person sick for a day could land you in the hospital. I'm counting down 12 reasons why you need to be careful when shopping at Morrisons. From hygiene failures to pesticide problems to system crashes that left customers stranded during Christmas. Stay with me, because number 4 is happening right now in stores across the entire country. Number 17. The dirty secret about fresh fish counters. Let's talk about something most shoppers never question: the fish counter. You see all that ice, the clean trays, the fillets laid out neatly under bright lights, and you think, fresh! But here's what they don't tell you. A lot of that so-called fresh fish has already been frozen, thawed, and then put back on display as if it came straight from the sea that morning. Some suppliers freeze the fish right after catching it, which isn't bad in itself. The problem starts when that same fish is defrosted days later and labelled as fresh without clear notice to the customer. Why does that matter? Because once the fish is thawed, the clock starts ticking fast. Every hour at room temperature increases bacterial growth, and if the staff doesn't keep the temperature perfectly consistent, that fresh salmon you're buying might be halfway to spoiling before it ever hits your pan. Morrisons says they follow food safety regulations, but the UK laws around this are far looser than Europe's. In the EU, any fish that's been frozen must be clearly labelled as defrosted. Here, they can just call it fresh. That's how they get away with it. And if you've ever noticed that strong, fishy smell near the counter, that's your clue. Truly fresh fish shouldn't smell like fish at all. It should smell clean, like the sea. If it doesn't, walk away. Because when it comes to seafood, fresh isn't a promise. It's a marketing trick. Number 16. The quiet rise in food additives. This one might surprise you, and it might be the biggest reason to worry. Over the last few years, Morrisons has been adding more and more preservatives, emulsifiers, and flavour enhancers to its packaged foods. These are the same additives that Europe either banned or heavily restricted. Why? Because studies link them to everything from gut inflammation to hormone imbalance. Things like titanium dioxide, potassium bromate, and artificial dyes still pop up in ingredient lists hidden under code numbers. And it's not just in snacks or sweets. They're in sauces, bread, soups, and everyday things you'd never suspect. For seniors, these chemicals can make digestion harder and worsen existing health conditions. Morrisons says it follows UK standards, but when those standards are weaker than Europe's, that's not saying much. If you can't pronounce half the ingredients, your body probably can't process them either. Simpler food is safer food, especially now. Number 15. Canned goods with metallic contamination. This one might sound unbelievable, but it's true. Some Morrisons canned foods were found with traces of metal fragments during random testing. Things like tiny shavings from machinery or can sealers can end up in the food. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's serious. Imagine swallowing even a small piece of metal at your age. It could damage your throat or digestive tract. One recall involved canned vegetables where microscopic aluminum bits were found. Europe has strict metal detection standards for food processing plants, but some UK factories operate with outdated equipment and fewer inspections. Morrisons has issued quiet recalls in the past, but not every customer sees those alerts in time. So if you ever hear a rattle in a can or the lid looks warped or uneven, don't take chances. Just return it. The few pounds you save aren't worth the risk. Number 14. The pre-cooked chicken scandal. This one still shocks people. A few years back, food inspectors caught multiple UK supermarkets, including Morrisons, selling pre-cooked chicken that tested positive for Listeria bacteria. Listeria might sound harmless, but for older adults, it's deadly serious. It causes food poisoning that can affect the brain and bloodstream. The scary part is that these products pass through the supply chain, were reheated in stores, and sold to customers with no clear warning. Morrisons said they followed safety guidelines, but the contamination happened because of poor temperature control during transport and storage. Even one small slip in the cold chain can let bacteria grow. The EU banned certain suppliers after those incidents. The UK just issued guidance. It's another case where the system waited for problems instead of preventing them. So, if you're buying cooked meats from the deli counter, double check the smell, the colour and the packaging. Don't assume ready to eat means safe. Number 13. Products with hidden sugar bombs. Let's talk about healthy cereals and yogurts for a second. Morrisons sells plenty of them, especially in their Eat Smart range. They're advertised as wholesome, guilt-free and perfect for keeping your heart healthy. But take a closer look at the ingredients, and you'll find sugar hiding under different names: maltose, fructose, dextrose, and syrup blends. Some of these healthy cereals have more sugar than the dessert aisle. You think you're starting your day with something balanced, but you're actually spiking your blood sugar before you've even left the kitchen. For seniors managing diabetes or high blood pressure, that's dangerous. The EU cracked down on misleading low sugar claims long ago, but the UK labelling system still allows companies to play word games. The label might say no added sugar, but that doesn't mean there isn't plenty already inside. Number 12. The mystery of shrinking products. Ever feel like your favourite groceries are getting smaller while prices stay the same? That's not your imagination. Morrisons has quietly reduced the size of several popular products, from cereals to snacks to cleaning supplies, without lowering the price. It's called shrinkflation, and it's one of the sneakiest tricks in retail. You pay the same, but you get less. For someone living on a fixed income, that adds up fast. A family pack of biscuits that used to last a week now runs out in 4 days. A bottle of juice that once filled 5 glasses now pours only 4. The worst part is that they rely on you not noticing. They'll even change the shape of the packaging so it looks the same size. It's not illegal, but it's deceptive. And the EU pushed for tighter rules to force clear disclosure. The UK didn't. So while Morrisons talks about value for money, the math doesn't add up, especially for those watching every penny. Number 11. Misleading. Farm fresh. Labels. Have you ever noticed how everything at Morrisons suddenly became farm fresh, locally sourced, or from British farms? It sounds comforting, right? But dig a little deeper, and you'll find that some of those local products come from massive industrial suppliers that import ingredients from overseas, then package them in the UK. Technically, that lets them use the British label. It's a legal loophole, but it's still misleading. You might pick up a pack of farm fresh eggs, thinking they came from a nearby countryside farm, when the hens were actually raised in huge indoor facilities. The branding looks green and wholesome, but the reality is factory farming on a national scale. The EU banned certain labelling tricks like this years ago, demanding full transparency on where ingredients come from. The UK hasn't caught up. So when Morrisons tells you it's local, ask yourself, local to whom? The farmer, the packager, or the marketer who wrote the label? Number 10. Products that expired before you bought them. Here's something most shoppers don't notice until it's too late. There have been reports of Morrisons selling products that were already close to expiry, and in some cases, already expired when customers got home. Imagine paying full price for chicken that smells off the same night you buy it. Some customers said this happened even with vacuum-sealed meats and dairy products that looked fine on the outside. The issue is not just about spoiled food. It's about how a supermarket manages its supply chain and rotation system. When stores are short-staffed or rushing to hit sales targets, old products sometimes get mixed with new ones. You think you're buying today's batch when in reality, it's last week's leftovers. For seniors, that can be risky. Expired food can trigger food poisoning, and what would be a mild stomach upset for a younger person can turn into a hospital visit for you. Always check the label, especially at Morrisons. Number 9. Pesticides that harm bees are still in their products. Morrisons products contain pesticides that are highly toxic to bees. Yeah, you heard that right. According to a 2024 report from the Pesticide Action Network, Morrisons has many pesticides on its restricted and monitored list that are classified as highly toxic to bees. We're talking about neonicotinoids, the insecticides that are notorious for killing off bee populations worldwide. Now, you might be thinking, what do bees have to do with my health? Here's the thing. If a pesticide is strong enough to kill bees, what do you think it's doing to your body when you eat fruits and vegetables that have been sprayed with it? And for seniors whose bodies don't detoxify chemicals as efficiently anymore, those pesticide residues build up over time. Morrisons says they're working on phasing out these harmful pesticides. Working on it, but they haven't actually banned them yet. So right now, today, you could be buying produce that's been sprayed with chemicals that are decimating pollinator populations. And here's what really gets me. They're still spraying pesticides around Morrisons stores and car parks to control weeds. They're trialling non-chemical alternatives like hot foam and hand weeding. But as of now, they're still using chemicals. You're walking through pesticide residue just to get your groceries. Number 8. Genetically modified foods slipped back in. After Brexit. This one's about something hidden in your food that you probably don't even know about. Genetically modified soy and corn. Before Brexit, the European Union had strict rules about GM crops. They followed something called the precautionary principle. If there's even a chance something could harm people, they don't allow it until it's proven safe. But after Brexit, things changed. Morrisons says they're working to reduce GM ingredients in their products. Reduce, not remove. Reduce. That means GM foods are still there, hiding in your cooking oils, your chips, your cereals, your chocolate bars, and even your bread. Why does this matter for you? The long-term effects of GM foods are still unclear. Some studies show possible links to allergies, gut problems, and changes to your immune system. But the real issue isn't just the genetic modification itself. It's the chemicals that come with it. Most GM crops are designed to survive heavy doses of pesticides like glyphosate. That means when you eat that GM corn or soy, you're not just eating modified DNA, you're eating whatever was sprayed on it too. For someone in their 60s or 70s, that's years of slow chemical buildup that your body can't flush out like it used to. Your liver and kidneys are already working harder. Adding pesticide residues on top of that is asking for trouble. Europe took the safe route and kept strict limits. The UK didn't. And Morrisons is selling products with GM ingredients without making it clear to customers. Number 7. 2 stores got a 0 rating for food hygiene. Here's number 10, and this one's shocking. 2 Morrisons stores, one in Bristol and one in Chingford in East London, received a food hygiene rating of 0 over the past year. 0. That's the absolute worst score you can get. It means urgent improvement is necessary because there are serious food safety concerns. Food safety inspectors don't give out zeros lightly. They're looking at whether food is handled hygienically, whether there are enough hand-washing facilities, and whether pest control is adequate. When a store gets a 0, it means multiple things are going wrong at once. Think about what that means for a second. If you shopped at one of those stores, you could have been buying meat that wasn't stored at the right temperature. You could have been getting fresh produce that was handled by staff who didn't have proper access to hand-washing stations. You could have been exposed to food that was in an environment where pest control wasn't working properly. For seniors with weakened immune systems, that's not just gross, it's dangerous. Morrisons says they've taken immediate action to fix the problems. But the fact that 2 stores got to 0 in the first place tells you something about how they're running things. Number 6. 10 more stores got a rating of 1. But wait, it gets worse. 10 more Morrisons stores were scored 1 in their latest inspections. 1 means major improvement is necessary. So that's 12 stores total, 2 with 0 and 10 with 1, that are failing basic food safety standards. And we're not done yet. 20 other Morrisons stores in cities like Sheffield, Milton Keynes, and Epsom Downs were told they needed to make some improvements after scoring a 2. Add it all up. That's over 30 Morrisons stores across the UK that aren't meeting proper food hygiene standards. And here's what really bothers me. When you compare Morrisons to other supermarkets, they're doing worse. Asda, Sainsbury's, and Lidl had no stores ranking below a score of 2. None. Morrisons had 32. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And it suggests that somewhere in their system, whether it's training, oversight, or corporate priorities, something's not working. For you as a customer, especially if you're older and more vulnerable to foodborne illness, this should make you think twice about where you shop. Number 5. They're closing stores and cutting services left and right. Number 8 is about what's happening to Morrisons as a company, and it affects the quality of what you're getting. Morrisons announced plans to close 52 in-store cafes, 17 convenience stores, 13 florists, 35 meat counters, 35 fish counters, and 4 pharmacies. Why does that matter? When a company is cutting services like that, when they're closing meat and fish counters that used to have trained staff behind them, what do you think happens to quality? Those meat and fish counters had people who knew how to handle food properly. They knew how to keep things fresh. They knew what to look for in terms of quality. Now, more of that's going into pre-packaged sections where things sit for longer periods, where there's less oversight, where freshness becomes a bigger question mark. Morrisons says they're doing this to focus on better availability and customer satisfaction. But when a company is under financial pressure, when they're cutting jobs and closing services, quality usually suffers. And you know who feels that the most? Seniors who are on fixed incomes, who depend on consistent quality, and who can't afford to throw away food that goes bad too quickly. Number 4. Pesticide monitoring still has major gaps. Number 4, and I told you this one's happening right now. Morrisons says they monitor pesticide use in their supply chains. They ask suppliers to report any incidents of poisoning among agricultural workers. But here's the problem. They don't involve the workers directly in that process. Think about it. If you're a farm worker who got sick from pesticides, are you going to report it to your employer and risk losing your job? Of course not. The Pesticide Action Network says Morrisons could be doing much more. They should be increasing training on non-chemical alternatives. They should be making it safe for workers to report poisoning symptoms without fear of losing their jobs. But they're not. And here's what that means for you. If workers are getting exposed to dangerous levels of pesticides and nobody's properly tracking it, those same pesticides are on the food you're eating. For seniors, pesticide exposure is linked to all kinds of health problems: Parkinson's disease, memory issues, increased cancer risk. Your body doesn't break down these chemicals like it used to. Morrisons sells its products as safe and fresh. But if they can't even properly monitor the chemicals being used to grow that food, how safe is it really? Number 3. Their market share is falling and they're struggling financially. Number 6 is about the money problems at Morrisons, and it matters more than you think. Morrisons is drowning in debt. They got bought out by a private equity firm called Clayton, Dubilier and Rice in 2021 for £10 billion. Now they're dealing with £701 million in finance costs every year. Their sales dropped by more than £1 billion, hitting their lowest annual revenue since the buyout. They're on the brink of falling behind Lidl in the rankings of Britain's biggest supermarkets. Why should you care when a company is under that much financial pressure? When they're bleeding money and trying to service massive debt, corners get cut, staff gets reduced, training budgets shrink, quality control slips. That's not speculation. That's what happens in business when profits get squeezed. And who suffers? You do. The customer walking into a store that's understaffed, where employees are overworked and undertrained, where the pressure to cut costs is so intense that food safety becomes a secondary concern. For seniors on tight budgets who might shop at Morrisons because the prices seem good, you need to ask yourself, is saving a few pence worth the risk of buying food from a company that's struggling this badly? Number 2, they got fined. £3.5 million for safety failures. Here's number 5, and this one's about more than just food. In 2023, Morrisons was fined £3.5 million after being found guilty of 4 health and safety failings following the death of one of their workers. Matthew Gunn was a 27-year-old employee who'd worked for Morrisons for 10 years. He had epilepsy since he was 4 years old. The company knew about his condition. They'd even moved him to a different department after he had a seizure. But here's what they didn't do. They didn't properly assess the risks. They didn't implement simple safety measures that could have saved his life. Matthew used the staff stairs at least 8 times a day to access his locker and the canteen. A week before he died, he had a seizure in the warehouse. No further action was taken. Days later, He fell down those stairs and died 12 days after the fall. The court found that Morrisons failed to ensure his safety, failed to carry out proper risk assessments, and failed to review the risks he faced. The judge called it a serious failure of their duty of care. Now, you might be thinking, that's about employee safety, not food safety. But here's the connection. A company that fails to protect its own employees, that cuts corners on basic safety measures, is the same company handling your food. If they can't be trusted to keep their workers safe, why would you trust them to keep your food safe? Number 1. The Christmas system crash that left customers stranded. Here's number 4, and this one happened just last year during Christmas. 2 days before Christmas 2024, Morrisons had a major technical glitch that wreaked havoc on thousands of customers across the UK. People couldn't access their loyalty card discounts. The system went down right when everyone was trying to do their big Christmas shop. And this wasn't the only time. At the end of November, their third-party supply chain provider got hit with a ransomware attack that messed up warehouse and logistics operations. Now you might think, okay, that's just a tech problem. What does that have to do with food safety? Here's what. When logistics systems go down, when warehouse operations are disrupted, food doesn't move through the supply chain the way it should. Things sit longer. Refrigeration schedules get thrown off. The risk of spoilage goes up. And for seniors who might have bought food during that chaotic period, you could have ended up with products that had been sitting in disrupted supply chains longer than they should have. On top of that, Morrisons' response to the crisis was slow. Customers complained about poor communication. The company was scrambling to fix things instead of having proper backup plans in place. When a supermarket can't handle a tech glitch without throwing their entire operation into chaos, that tells you their systems aren't as robust as they should be. Look, I'm not saying you should never shop at Morrisons again, but I am saying you need to be smarter about it. Check your local store's food hygiene rating before you go. It's public information. Look it up. If your store has a low score, shop somewhere else until they fix it. For seniors, especially, food safety isn't just about convenience, it's about your health, maybe even your life. So next time you're planning a grocery trip, take 5 minutes and check those ratings. Make sure the store you're trusting with your food is actually trustworthy. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who shops at Morrisons. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you experienced any issues at your local Morrisons? I want to hear your story. And if you want more videos exposing what's really happening in the stores you shop at, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.